Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 52 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I have Asperger's syndrome. I was diagnosed 7 years ago when I was 51, having had a career as a geologist without knowing I had Asperger's, but always knowing I was different and struggled to fit in. And that's what I want to talk to you today about. But before I do, I just want to let you know, and those that are on the call, that I'm recording this, and Lucia has given me permission to record it. And I now work with employers to help them better manage people like me, people who have Asperger's in the workplace, with tips and strategies and processes that they can readily implement very quickly, very cheaply, to get the best out of people like myself who have Asperger's. So yes, today's topic is fitting in. And this came as a result of a conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago on the previous edition of this show, when I was talking to someone else and we were talking about fitting in. And I thought, well, that's something we should give its own topic to. I've always known I was different, as I said earlier, and I've always struggled fitting in. And by that, I mean not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to behave. Not in a sense of do I behave badly or naughtily or not as a child, but what do I do? How do I behave? What do I do? What can I do to make myself feel welcomed when I wasn't particularly welcome in many of the places that I've been? Even with family, there were instances in family where I didn't feel as though I fitted in particularly. And to give you an example, I was about 8 years old and we were down at Christmas with my nans. My nan had a big townhouse in Brighton, massive big lounge. And there was aunts and uncles and cousins and my brothers that were there. And it was a bit noisy in the room. And I happened to be standing up in the middle of the room when an adult came from the kitchen, heard this noise of all these people talking in this room, saw me and went, "Andrew, get over there, sit down, shut up and be quiet." Now, everyone, apart from me, thought that was hysterical. "Oh, yeah, Andrew, sit down, shut up and be quiet." But actually, that was the mantra that I lived in for the next 10 years until I was 18 and was able to leave home and go study at college around family. It was, "There's Andrew. Oh, Andrew, go sit down, shut up and be quiet." And they might have thought sometimes it was a bit of fun to them, but it wasn't funny to me. I wasn't laughing. It made me even more unwelcome and as though I wasn't welcome to be in that company. With notable exceptions at school, I struggled at school to fit in. I had some friends, particularly in the sixth form. I got on very well with people in the sixth form, and that helped me out immensely in my studies. But at college, no, I was worse than bullied. I was abused at college because I didn't fit in, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. And in those early days and weeks at college, when everyone's forming their friendship groups and gangs, and I just didn't fit in with anyone. I was very much a loner, didn't fit in with anyone. And I was the one person in my group that most people picked on. When they're building their relationships with others, making friends, I was the one that they were picking on, which was in a way was reinforcing their group by them all picking on me. And I didn't fit in. I didn't feel as though I belonged. And it was a struggle. It was a great struggle. And some of the lecturers even treated me differently, as though I was a kind of an outcast, and didn't particularly fit in. And I didn't know how to correct this. I didn't know how to fix this, because I didn't know how to make friends, how to approach the now bullies and say, "Yeah, come on, guys, just knock it off, will you, guys, and leave me alone," because there was too many of them. There was like a dozen of them, and they were never on their own. I never was able to get the odd one on their own and say, "Cut it out, guys." They were always in groups, groups of 2 or 3, excuse me. And I was never able to try and stop this bullying and this abuse from happening. And that made me very much a loner. That changed my personality, my college years, from being quite gregarious person, even though sometimes I didn't fit in. But I thought I fitted in sometimes around groups and in with family, but it was a strained relationship. But college was where it really hammered home that I was different. If I hadn't understood that I was different before growing up and being at school, when I was at college, that really hit home, and that's where I became a loner, plowed my own furrow, did my own thing. I had a few, I won't say friends, but people that were reasonably nice to me from time to time and weren't bullies. And I just basically did my own thing in my own way at college and got through it pretty much on my own, apart from in my third year. I went to a very quiet hall of residence for my third year, and there was three of my uh, colleagues on my course were there, and they helped me out quite a lot in my third year because I needed the peace and quiet to study really hard for my final year. And that was something that helped, was to get away from the raucous behavior of people in halls of residence and the lodges, where it was just it was like a scene from Animal House. That's how they treated their digs and their friends and their possessions. The number of times that other people on my course had their room basically emptied. They just emptied everything out of their bedrooms, and they would hinge the doors to the floor, so that when you open the door, the door, when you unlock the door would fall flat on the floor and you would fall in with it. They used to think that was hysterical for the people that were affected, but I couldn't cope with that because they were sharing rooms. So one other person had a key, and they would borrow the key and wreck your room. And I couldn't cope with that. I kept out of the halls for most of the time. Then we get to work situation. It's quite interesting because I went to work in Glasgow. That was the first place that offered me a job when I graduated. And I'm from the south of England. I'm from a place called Crawley in Sussex, which is next to Gatwick Airport. And Glasgow was a culture shock for me. It was a completely different environment. As an Englishman, going to work in Glasgow in the mid 1980s was a culture shock for me. The accents were all different. It made me stick out even more because I was so English to them. I was the epitome of a typical English person, sort of the BBC English type of situation, the way that I spoke. And that, again, that labeled me as being different. Um, I got treated differently. In one particular company, I was badly bullied at work in my 30s. I was badly bullied at work, on nights out that I occasionally went on. I had pepper blown in my eyes. I had a party popper unpopped right by my eye, just because someone didn't like me in work. And so that environment makes it so difficult to do anything, to feel as though um, that you can fit in somewhere, and you feel as though you're under so much scrutiny because you're different. And that scrutiny kind of developed into um, an unhealthy relationship with trying to find ways to keep out of the way, and which made me more difficult to fit in. And even simple things. I'll give you an example. I've been married. I'm married to Leslie, my second wife. My first wife and I split up many years ago, but we have two children, my first wife and I. And when you're invited to sort of works at weekends, and it's bring the kids and there's a barbecue and things like that, I wouldn't know what to wear. I would sit in the house and I would think, what am I supposed to wear for this works outing? What do I wear? Is shorts okay? I don't think I could wear shorts. If no one else is in shorts, I'm going to look stupid. Do I wear jeans? Is that too informal? It's a works outing. Is that too informal? Do I wear chinos? And I would get myself into a right state about simple things like what to wear on works outings and what to wear at work. Work wasn't so bad because there was a sort of informal uniform that you wear. It was jacket and trousers or a suit, shirt and tie. So that was okay. So the formality of the work environment in consulting engineering as a geologist that was okay, because there was an expectation and people generally fitted in with that expectation as to what to wear. But works outings and what to wear at weekends was a struggle for me. And I remember my dad worked in procurement. And even at weekends, my dad would wear a shirt and tie. And as a kid growing up, I'd be in a t-shirt or a polo shirt or something like that and a pair of jeans. But my dad rarely didn't wear a shirt and tie, even at weekends. And I think that rubbed off on me to some extent, because I didn't know how to fit in. Do I wear chinos and a casual shirt? Is that too casual? Am I going to stand out? Is it too formal? How do I fit in? And I don't have an answer to that. I didn't have an answer to that as to what to wear at a works outing, or when we're going to see friends, or things like that, because I never knew. I never knew what these unwritten rules that most people have were, and they seem to know and complied with. It's as though I didn't get the rule book that everyone else had, or if I did get a rule book, it was in Chinese or something that I couldn't read. And everyone else knew and understood what these unwritten rules of how to behave and how to act and how to dress and where to stand and when to speak to someone, and things like that. And um, in some of the networking groups before COVID came along, but in some of the networking activities that I did, you would be in a room of 30 or 40 people, and the aim of it was to mingle and have conversations with other people about who they are, what they do, who you are, what you do. And I would struggle with that, because when I walk into a room of 30 people having 15 different conversations, I was always brought up not to interrupt people. My parents were very strict in that sense, and I think that was right, not to interrupt people, because that's rude. And so I would be in a networking meeting where the aim of the game is to have conversations with people. But people would be having conversations, and I didn't know how to go and introduce myself to two people or three people that are having a conversation. Do I just walk up to them in the middle of the conversation, interrupt them, say, "Hi, I'm Andrew. I work with Asperger syndrome in the workplace," or do I stand back and wait for a gap in the conversation, or someone to say, "Oh, come on into the conversation. Come and introduce yourself. I'm so and so," and then that would be fine. But not knowing how to do that is a great struggle for me to even now, even understanding that I have Asperger's, and even understanding that things that people have helped me with, particularly my wife, my wife Leslie has helped me a lot with social interaction. But I still struggle with that. If we go to friends, I would not really be sure what I'm supposed to be doing there, and whether it's okay to have a conversation, what to talk about. What do you talk about in family and friends? I don't know. I really don't know what I talk about. So I would wait and see what the conversation was gathering on about, and maybe chip in. But again, that's interrupting people. So all of these, all of these aspects of fitting in become much more significant to someone with Asperger's than to a neurotypical person, who might glide through these social interactions of meeting people, having conversations with people, how to speak to clients. So, well, I was okay at speaking to clients, actually, to be honest, because that was a professional setting. But other people would glide through these situations seamlessly, and I would be banging against a brick wall or grating against something, because I didn't know how to fit in, how to get along with other people. And that, being isolated in a room full of people, is something I very much still feel, because I don't feel as though I belong, with one exception, one major exception, and that is when I go to writing conferences. I write novels in my spare time, and I've been writing for 25 years, something like that. And if I'm going to a writing conference or a writing event, I feel relaxed and I feel as though I fit in, whereas I wouldn't normally, because everyone in the room, whether they're a writer, an editor, or a publisher, or an agent, everyone in the room has one goal, and that's to be the best at writing that they can be. Or if they're a teacher or a lecturer, that's to help other people become as good a writer as they can be. And writers get on. We talk to each other about things and we enjoy each other's company. And I absolutely find that when I go to writing conferences, I fit in. I naturally fit in. I don't know why, other than everyone wants to know what you're writing. They're excited about what you're writing and they want you to be as good as they can be. And if they can share a tip or strategy or refer you to someone who might be a good teacher for a certain thing you're dealing with, people will do that in writing circles. They're not going to say, no, I'm going to keep all this to myself because he writes in the same genre as me. I'm not going to tell them anything. We're not like that. We share and we're open about it and we'll talk about our latest writing. And it goes down really well. And I thoroughly enjoy going to writing conferences because I feel as though I belong there. Whereas in most other circumstances, I don't feel as though I belong. And how to find myself fitting in is a daily struggle. Is a daily struggle with what do I say, what do I do, what do I wear, what's appropriate to talk about, what isn't appropriate, how long do I stay? That's another thing I have great difficulty with. I can get overwhelmed in a room of people because of all the noise, all the conversations going on. And I might be enjoying myself with family or friends and having a nice time. But I will get to a point where I'll say to my wife, I say, Leslie, can we go now? That's not because I'm not enjoying myself, but it's because I'm getting to a point where all of the noise, all of the conversations, all of the chatter is becoming a point where it's getting overwhelming for me. And I know that if I stay, my I will I will start to get very grumpy, very irritable, very short with people, and then it will develop into getting into a really agitated state and potentially having a meltdown if someone says something wrong to me that to other people would just not be an issue. So we have if I use the phrase to my wife, Leslie, can we go now? That's code for I need to leave. I need to get away. I need to go back to safety. And safety for me is right where I am now, which is in my room with my computer or my books or whatever it is that I have, where I know exactly what's going on. I know where my wife is, what she's doing. And we interact when we need to about food and drinks and all sorts of other things and conversation over dinner. That's fine. We have our way of working that out. But other things around people is a struggle and I have to get away. I'm conscious that I have spoken for quite a little while there, and I'm perhaps going to ask Lucia what your feelings are about fitting in. Do you find that you fit in well with people, or do you have struggles like myself?
Oh, yeah, I actually, everything that you said, it resonates with me because I was the same. I struggled at school. I was bullying. I was like a loner. I barely had any friends. In college, it was a bit better. I wasn't bullied, but I didn't, I barely make any friends. I was always like a side rather. I was very shy and just I don't know. And then at work also I couldn't here in the UK. I went into IT industry without actually. I made the wrong choice, and I was in IT support, and that required like front desk answering phone calls and talking on the phone, and I was overwhelmed. I found it difficult to understand what the other person was saying. So I understand English. I speak very good English, and when talking face to face, I understand everything. But on the phone, I just struggled. People with different accent and phone it distorts. It's like some distortion, some noises, background noises. I couldn't understand what people say, and I was struggling. and I didn't know when I can talk, when my turn talk, and always, all this communication and social interaction problems. I wasn't sure, like as you say, what to say and how to say it and how to behave.
Yes.
I exactly the same, and I couldn't keep jobs for long, like several months here, several months there, and they also, like poor performance, because I didn't perform well on a service desk, and
Mm, mm.
I
I,
would,
I I can imagine that must have been very stressful.
yeah, and after,
I have difficulty with telephone conversations
oh
because
my gosh,
although it's as though there's some kind of comprehension barrier that I can't get across. I I speak well. I like to think that I speak well and can be understood, but it's the reaction I get from other people. It's as though they don't understand what I've said or don't understand the meaning by what I've said. When to me it's very clear, uh, and I don't know what it is. Whether there's just some way that that people react with me or interact with me that means that my message is garbled when I thought I spoke clearly. And what they say back to me is just, yes, I understand the words, but I can't comprehend how they've got to that point from what I've said. It's as though there's a lost in translation part when we're talking English. And I really struggle with that. I really struggle with that. And I can imagine how being in uh, a service desk situation on the phones would have been a nightmare.
oh, it's horrible, it's horrible. And I wanted to get into the back end to work in infrastructure, because I was studying and passed very difficult exams to get certified with Cisco, like a network professional, and with Microsoft as a server engineer, because I wanted to get out of the service desk. But normally its progression is like you stay with one in company, work on a service, then get promoted. But I wasn't given that a chance. I was just dismissed because
Yeah.
I couldn't perform well on a service days, and I could never get to the point to become a member of infrastructure team. Because when you apply for a new job, they see that service desk, obviously they wouldn't offer an infrastructure role. And when I lost my last job in December 2019, I said, oh, that's enough. I had enough of this hoping from job to job and the same results. And I just started to think about going self-employed, and I learned completely different skills. I learned graphic design, web design, photography, and registered as self-employed. But still, even now, I struggle to how to connect with people, because you need to look for clients, and it's about communication, about approaching people, how to present myself, how to promote myself. It's just so difficult.
It is. I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And I sometimes marvel at other people who can just get clients just like picking up sweets from a sweet shop. They can just attract clients, and I don't understand how they do that.
Yeah, me too. For to me, it's a mystery. How can they do that? And I see people less skilled than me, and they
Yes,
have
yes,
clients, and
I,
it's just I don't understand.
yes. I completely agree that there's people that I've met in all walks of life who, particularly when I was a geologist, who were not particularly good as geologists or engineers, but they got on great with clients and they would get promoted and they would get, better salaries, better conditions, but they weren't as good as me at what I did. But they were better at the liaison with the client and managing the teams and hobnobbing with the directors and having all those intricate little conversations that other people understood that made them look good. And I never understood that. I never found, with perhaps the odd exception here and there, I never really um, got on in that environment. Apart from one particular client that I worked with when we were working on his site, and he liked the way that, because I would tell the truth. if we'd be in a meeting and they say, why did this happen? And I would tell him the truth. And other people would be sitting in the middle, oh, you can't tell the client the truth. You can't tell them that. Yes, you can. I just told him the truth. And then I've explained to him what happened, what we're going to do about it, how we're going to fix it, and how we're going to move it forward. A client loved that. He would talk to me after the meeting and said, yeah, that was good. I like the way you did that. I like the way you did that. Let's move that forward in that way. So that was a rarity, was having someone who understood what I was trying to do. And what I was trying to do was do the right thing for the client, deliver them good service, deliver them the right solution. And he understood me. He understood me. This was way before I knew I had Asperger's, but he understood me and how I interacted with him, and we got on brilliantly. We got on very, very well. But that was a notable exception rather than the norm of people looking at me strangely and going, what? And I just struggled with that fitting into the groups and the teams and the communication, because other people behaved differently to me than they did to other people, and that was quite bizarre. And I never really understood that. Never understood that.
Have you had instances that, for example, what you say, other people say, oh, it was rude or impolite, and that you didn't mean that, to you, it was okay?
Yes, frequently.
Frequently.
Frequently. You can't say that. The people would say to me, you can't say that. I said, why not? It's the truth. I'm telling you what the problem is. I'm telling you what we're going to do about it. And if there's a cost or a time implication, I'll tell you what that is as well. And let's go ahead and get it on and move the project forward. And other people didn't get me. They just didn't get me. And I think in some instances they felt threatened by me, and I have no idea why that was. Because I'm the least threatening person you're ever likely to meet. I just want to do my job well, service the client. And other people didn't get me for doing that. They had a different agenda, which was to make themselves look good, so that they could make themselves look good in front of the managers and the directors, so that they could get the promotions and they could get the pay rises and the status that goes with that. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I wasn't invited. Yeah, go on.
They sugarcoat a lot.
Yes, yes, they would.
I personally can't do that. I just can't sugarcoat. I'm too straightforward. When I see it's black, I say it's black.
Yes, yes, I'm very much a black and white person. I saw the black. I don't have a grey area. My grey area doesn't exist. I've learned through bitter experience to try and be better at things, to be a bit more diplomatic, but I still struggle. And what I tend to do then is I tend not to say anything, rather than, because my wife tells me that I shouldn't say something, or I don't say it in those tones. So I tend then not to say anything. And so I will then be very quiet and reserved and keep out of the way. And that's how I tended to deal with that. And my wife sometimes looks at me as much as say, don't you dare say what I think you're going to say. And so I won't. And I then just become someone sitting quietly in a corner, or going for a walk in the garden, or playing with a dog, or someone, or whatever it is, to keep out of that situation where I don't feel as though I fit in. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the same. I prefer just to stay quiet, because what if I say something that someone wouldn't like, or I come across as being rude, or
yeah, I completely agree. I get it. And it is such a struggle. And people don't realize how much of a struggle it is just being around other people and having to deal with that. People really don't understand that. They think I'm putting it on, or I'm exaggerating. No, it's tough. It's really, really tough. And it's very, very stressful. It's very stressful. I get very stressed out. I get agitated and anxious, and really simple things to other people can really grate and annoy me, to the point where I just have to get away, or ignore something if it's happening, and trying to get across to someone how difficult it is being who you are with Asperger's, and to trying to fit in and get on. People just don't get it. They really just don't get it. And
what about chit chat? Even in the group, and people just tick, 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 yeah, one after another, one after another. How do do you participate on this?
I hate idle chit chat, Lucia. I absolutely hate idle chit chat. It drives me nuts.
Yeah,
where people are having a conversation about nothing.
Yeah,
and they're getting so wound up about this conversation about nothing, like what happened on Strictly or what happened on Coronation Street, or I don't care. I really don't care. Oh, it's so refreshing to be able to talk to someone who understands.
I'm just amused how other people can do it, and they make it so effortlessly, just
Yes.
as if they had a script to read
Yes.
from.
Yes.
It's just, I just with open mouth, I can't follow it, what they're talking about, just to me, it like a waste of time, like talking about nothing, one after another, like they already, the order of who talks after whom is already established, it just, I get lost.
I tend to just walk away from those conversations because I can't cope with them. I get overwhelmed by this chitty chatty nonsense, and I can't cope with it at all. You're absolutely right. I really struggle with that. Are there any other things that you struggle with that I haven't mentioned, perhaps?
Yeah, it's mostly, like being around people, like I don't like being in crowded places, like once my daughters invited me to a theater, like before Christmas, we went like several years in a row, and I went because I wanted to see a show, but being there, so many people, like thousands of people, it's so hard for me to sit, just to endure that environment. It's interesting. I try to look just at the stage, try not to ignore the people around me, all these crowds, and just, but it's so, I feel so tired after that, like so drained.
Yeah.
It's just all crowded places, going to a shopping mall. Oh my gosh, it's so many people.
Yes.
I just like sitting in my room alone, working on my computer.
Yeah. When I go shopping, I have a list, and I only get what's on the list, and I know where everything is. So I go boom, 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 and I don't go aimlessly up and down the aisles looking for other things. I know exactly where the things that I want are, and I go there, check out, car, home, and I don't dilly-dally around it. I'm straight in, straight out, and that's how I deal with it, because otherwise, dealing with people and trolleys and people and kids running around in supermarket, I can't cope with it. I really can't cope with it. I struggle with all of those things that we've talked about today. I really do. I really do. Yeah.
It's nice to hear that there are other people, like me, because I just recently only realized, I started to read about that, because I was never diagnosed. No one talked about it, when I was a child, no one even knew about this,
Yes.
no one talked about it. I've never heard.
Yes.
But when I with every jobs that I lost, I asked myself, what is wrong with me? Why? I tried to be, like I did a good job. I was always punctual. I was never late, and I did the job well. And there were colleagues that were lazy and chit chat in during a work, and I was always working. And they stayed, and I lost the job, and I just it didn't give me any rest. And then just recently, I talked with my middle daughter, and she mentioned, oh, one of my colleagues got diagnosed with autism. And I talked to her, oh, what if I have that? And I started to read. a lot, you know, on the websites, whatever I could find on any website that I could, and then, oh my gosh, everything agrees.
Yes.
I mean, I even took the two quizzes tests, like online tests on exceptional individuals, and I scored quite high, like
Yes.
44. And
Yes.
said, oh my gosh, I have it. Everything agreed. And I'm trying to get I book an appointment with GP, with a doctor. I'm trying to get a referral to get officially diagnosed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, I felt at ease when I realized
Yes.
that why
Yes.
that was why I struck, because it just didn't let me go. You know, so I was like, I don't know, asking myself what was wrong. What was wrong? Something is wrong?
Yes.
No, something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
Why? But when I learned why, I felt at ease, you know. Finally, I know why I struggled and why I couldn't keep jobs.
Yeah.
And it just I was glad that I found out.
Yeah. I scored 44 on the test as well.
Yeah, 44. Yeah.
Anyway, Lucia, it's been a pleasure having you on. We're just about running out of time, but
Yeah.
if you are watching this on replay and you've got any questions you want to ask me, then you can get in touch with me on my website, which is aspergersmatters.com, or you can email me at andrew@aspergersmatters.com. But it's been really great having you on, and thanks so much for contributing, Lucia. It's been great to speak to you today. And if anyone's got any other comments or questions they want to make, then please get in touch. So I'm going to close off the recording. Until next week, look out for the LinkedIn post on Friday, which will let you know what next week's post session is about.